This is the Truth Network.
Hidden treasures of the Song of Songs, which is Solomon's. So today's episode, I'm going to just call a Hunka burning love. Yes, the Holy Spirit just kind of hit me with that as I kept on, contemplating this idea of a spring shut up. And so this idea of the Lamed verse of the 4th chapter of the Song of Solomon, a garden enclosed is my sister, my spouse, a spring shut up, and a fountain sealed. And so as I thought about this and pondered it and saw it and thought about it, I mean, it was really an amazing thing that when you think about really valuable things in your life, you lock them up, right? You keep them behind some type of vault, if at all possible, right? That the more valuable it is, the more you try to keep that locked up, which is exactly what we have here, is this idea of 2 locks and a seal. So obviously what this is extremely precious. And I have to say that Elvis helped me out. I guess we're close to his birthday. Because again, that word that's translated spring there really had me going, because I just couldn't seem to, as we talked about in yesterday's episode, I just couldn't understand how they, everybody seemed to translate it spring, but I didn't see spring in that word at all, because it is a gimel and a lamed. And the idea of gimel lamed is the idea of rolling, because, when Gilgal, the stone was rolled, we're going to roll away your reproach and contempt, like it says in the 119th Psalm, like Jesus' stone was rolled away. Well, the idea of rolling is like waves, like your heart beats in waves. And so that idea of the lamed is this like wave. And so the more I studied it and the more I thought about it, and then I came to this, in this 42nd Psalm in verse 7, it says, deep calls to deep, at the noise of thy waterspouts, and all thy waves and thy billows have gone over me. Well, that word billows right there, that is this word, that word billows. And so this is a storm, man. This is a rolling storm. And so as you begin to think about that, I mean, you can't help but see that this is somebody that's describing the love process. And so, I mean, they are rolling under the sheets. I mean, from my standpoint, this garden of delights is in full bloom. And so let's get this party started, right? I mean, this is how the church rolls under the sheets, right? Literally. And I know that sounds awkward, but it's so true. It's so true that the passion that is involved here, Jesus is not going to spit you out of his mouth. That this is locked up and closed and very intimate and hidden, but by the same token, don't miss out on the fact that this is rock and roll. I mean, this is passionate love right here. And so these billows, these waves of, for anybody that understands the human body knows that all these things happen in waves. Maybe you've had waves of pain at time in your life, or waves of other things, but obviously in the lovemaking process, there are billows, and this is a storm. And so, a hunka burning love kind of describes what it is that is all locked up here. And again, this is a very passionate church that deeply, deeply loves its groom. And so when you think about where that starts, right? He says, that you are a garden enclosed. Well, that idea of a garden is around every corner. If you love to go walking in gardens, and I do, is some new surprise, some new delight, right? Maybe it's a bright orange mushroom that has grown up and looks huge. I saw one of those yesterday. Or maybe it's a blue gecko, or a lizard skink that's coming out of the, or a beautiful songbird that's in the garden. In other words, there's something around every corner that's just an absolute delight. And of course it's enclosed. Of course it's locked up, because it is so full of delights, which is what Jesus is describing. And then, it billows. Okay. This is a full passionate storm that is going on in here of love. As this Gimel Lamed is this great, that the Gimel begins the word great because it has to do with this a tremendous thing. And so here's this tremendous wave. I mean, this tremendous billow that's going on. And so you get the picture of, the passion that's involved in that. And then you get to that last word where he talks about a fountain sealed. And he changes the way that it's locked. The others are locked up behind sort of a deadbolt type of lock. But here we've got a seal. And this seal that's described here is the seal that like in the book of Revelations, there are going to be several seals. In other words, this is sealed because this is something that, is kind of for your eyes only, Jesus. It just is sealed. And this fountain that is described here is the same fountain that, Solomon described in Proverbs 5:16, where he was talking to the guy about not going to the wayward woman and letting his fountain be in the streets and all that stuff, right? Read Proverbs 5:16. That's the fountain he's talking about. And that fountain is quite clearly has to do with procreation. It has to do with making babies here, okay? And the woman is just as involved in that as the man from a standpoint of fountain. And what a beautiful thing. What an amazing thing. Really, when you let the awkwardness go for a minute and realize what a beautiful, lovely, passionate ecstasy that all that is, and all I can say is, yay, God, right? Because as I said at the beginning of this, man, I mean, the church behind closed doors, sealed, and in its proper bedroom is the ultimate lover. It just is. Why? Because it has complete faith in the groom. Complete faith. They always talk about oaks by, the stream and from the first Psalm, and it's mentioned in Isaiah. But yesterday I was on my walk through my garden in Moxville, and there was this gigantic beech tree that was there by the little brook that runs through there. And this thing, I don't know, it might have been 10 feet around. It was huge. It was gigantic, and its branches went way up. And I thought about it, that it was so, its roots had gone so deep into that water that it was just a succulent tree. I mean, it just was able to grow to unbelievable heights as a result of having the living water that it needed so readily available, because its roots had sunk so down deep into this little brook. I mean, it was absolutely a beautiful picture of what this is, that as we take our garden of delights and we sink it down into just absolute faith and trust in Jesus, like, oh my goodness, are we going to bloom? Are we going to open up, and we are going to be this, for lack of a better word, just this billows of love, of in order to be fruitful, that others might come into this same garden and exchange those same ideas of the billows and the fountains and all that's involved in this closed garden, right? I mean, that's the idea of love, is we get light as a result of that. In other words, new babies are made, and as those babies come, we bring light into the world. And so, of course, it's this spectacular, passionate thing. And so I feel like the Holy Spirit has really shown me something in this garden enclosed, in this idea of the billow that has been, deadbolted and the fountain, that is sealed for such a time to create light like has never been made. And I thank you so much for listening. How fun is that?